We took our mask off.
Call this
as
meeting to
we're
order.
walking
This
out
is
the
the
airport.
BET regular meeting for Tuesday, August 10th. Roll call, looks like everybody's here. Item number 1, discussion possible action regarding the minutes from 6/8, 6/17, and 6/23. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to move the minutes from June 8th, June 17th, and June 23rd.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I want to abstain on the 8th, though. I wasn't here and I've not had a chance to review the minutes, but I'm an aye on the other two.
That was the short meeting.
Was it?
I think it was the short one.
It shouldn't take long to review.
Yeah,
You want a second?
that's what I'm saying.
So. All right, item number 2, discussion possible action regarding an update on employee benefits. John?
Good morning.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. We're only a month and 15 days into it, so there's not much data really to compare yet. So we're doing pretty good so far, especially on prescriptions. And deposited this week at $89,000 stop loss reimbursement, so that'll bring the total down a little bit. We have about 30,000 in COVID claims, waiting for the next report, and we'll file those together. But really, nothing substantial happening in terms of things we need to be alert of. Everything's looking pretty good.
John, what was the date of the COVID claims that you submitted that we've paid so far?
It was through last fiscal year.
In
Yeah.
June?
Yeah, end of June. So we got an initial report, it was only 30,000, so I'm waiting to get some more claims built up and we'll file both those together.
Now, this year, I know I ask this every year, but
Sure.
are we comparing roughly the same number of weeks?
We are.
Equal, you know, sometimes we
Yeah.
have 1 week plus or minus.
I think the same number of weeks.
And that 129 at the bottom, am I correct that that should actually be like 88,000? Because we have a negative 108 and a positive 20, so we should take the 20 away from the 108.
So this is the most recent fiscal year. This is the last fiscal year,
Right,
the difference between the two.
So we've
We're
had more.
over, so it's a negative number since we're,
right, and then above
I think he was talking about
the
the
108,
108.
583 is a decrease.
decreased, and we're decreased here, and we're
But
increased
you get
here.
a decrease and an increase, so your decrease of 108 is offset by
It should go
20, so
across,
it should be
yeah.
like 88,000.
That's right, because we've got 20,000 more in refunds back, so.
So you add that
We're
to
down
that.
less, you add that in instead of taking that away, so you're down 130,000 net compared to last year.
Oh, so the top and the bottom is opposite as far as increase versus decrease. Okay. I got you. I was reading the header and thinking it applied
Right,
all the way down.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. And you're still gonna be tracking COVID expenses and all of that, right?
We have one person in the hospital this month for about 3 days because of COVID, but no other inpatient stuff, so that's good. It's really good.
I'm guessing that we're probably gonna have an uptick in testing and that kind of stuff, so if we're monitoring that. So, I just say that because my little one, we had to take him and, I mean, it wasn't anything really related to that, but they wanted the testing for it, so I'm assuming that's probably gonna be happening, so. All right, is there a motion to receive the report?
So moved.
Second.
Motion
Who
second?
did that?
Randy.
Brandy.
Brady, and then who?
Brandy and the Miles.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Item 3, discussion possible action, receive an update related to the status of all cost centers set up within Special Projects Fund 1400. So Danny, Kelly, if you guys could help me, I think I remember anyway, after the sheriff's item request, we were on the left column at like 55,000 left, and now we're at 3.8. Is that because we shifted some stuff around? Some of these unexpended dollars?
I don't think we ever had 58 on the left because it hadn't been encumbered yet. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, there was a certain, the left-hand column was like that 3.8, and then we approved the amount for the sheriff's office, and when you subtracted those two numbers, it was gonna leave like $55,000 in that left-hand column.
Right.
Has it just not been taken out of there yet, or
No.
did we shift money around? Okay.
Because they're still working on getting it encumbered. Only 530,501 has been encumbered at this point.
But it was-
And that's not even on here.
But that money was approved by Budget Board and BOCC, so it's, I mean, it's gone. I mean, it's just waiting to get it encumbered, so that 3.824 is misleading.
400,000 change.
Pardon?
It's about 400,000 and change left once the 3.4 comes out of there.
I thought you guys had, I thought it was 3.7, that total that we had on Budget Board? Maybe not.
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll update
Is
that.
that-
47?
Huh?
Yeah, it's about 3.7 total.
That's what I was thinking.
Not for us, though.
Well, it may have been some
Oh,
other
okay.
stuff in there too, but I think it was a total of 3.7 that was recommended
Yeah, 'cause
transferred, right?
No, that's not right. Because there was 300,000 in there already, so it was only 3,078,000 that got transferred.
Okay. Well, once that gets.
We'll update it, we'll get it emailed out.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, so as of right now, the sheriff's account is zeroed out, juveniles is zeroed out, facilities has 54,000 left, and then emergency management has 324. And then we'll have whatever that other amount is after the encumbrance. Still in there, okay. Is there a motion to receive an update?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Item 4, discussion possible action to create a new BET watch list for fiscal year '22. Is there a motion to
I'll make a
start a new
motion.
list?
I'll make a motion to start a new BET watch list for the current fiscal year.
Second.
Got a motion, and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. All right, item number 5, discussion possible action on making recommendation to Budget Board as to where the remaining balance in Criminal Justice Authority CARES Fund needs to be distributed. Total amount, the totals amount not to exceed $889,000 with $821,500 in salary account and $67,769.75 in benefit that was designated for hero pay.
I'm gonna move to strike this item. We put this on there a little premature, I think.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to strike. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Item 6, discussion possible action regarding an update on the implementation of requirements of Oklahoma House Bill 2311 and the identified staffing and resources necessary upon implementation to maintain the safety of the residents and the employees. This is related to YOs being housed at juvenile instead of the jail, correct?
The attachment that you have has been revised, and that's what I'm passing out. So if you want to accept this,
Motion to receive the report.
Second.
The document, I guess.
Got a motion and a second to receive
you
the
can keep the detail.
document.
Okay, it's just-
All those in
Just the
favor
first
say
one.
aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay, this is what we are anticipating that we're gonna need. And I've done first and second year costs. 15 additional detention officers. We wanna hire 7 in August and 8 in September so that we can get them trained. And also, at the same time, we'll be hiring for vacancies, which we have 14 right now. We have 8 officers out positive with COVID, 14 vacancies, 12 ready to go to training starting Monday. 15? 16, okay. And 1 officer is hospitalized with COVID pneumonia. And we have 2 positive kids with symptoms. Just since we were on that. We need additional uniforms for the additional officers. We need an additional intake officer who's going to be the key person that works with OSBI and the police and all of the coordination that it's gonna take to do the booking and the fingerprints and be the point of contact for that. We need an additional mental health position because we're gonna have, it's already started with the youthful offenders that we have, but the murder ones could easily be with us for 2 years. That's a long time in a place that wasn't set up like a prison with where you can work in the kitchen and you can do this and that. So we really feel like we're gonna need another mental health position. We feel like we need to send 5 staff the first year and 5 staff the second year, detention officers, to defensive tactics training. Bruce has located that. Is this the DOC? Yeah. They said that we could attend free, but we will have some per diem costs. We may have lodging, but it looks like that they may actually move that to Oklahoma City. So if they do, we can reduce that cost a little bit. And then the iTouch is what OSBI says that we should get for our fingerprint live scan machine. And this cost includes training and a 5-year warranty and installation. So I have the figures there for you, and what it does not include is a full-time sheriff deputy. We've had some initial conversations with some people at the sheriff's office. Varro?
Very.
Yeah, and I had also had a casual conversation during Bridge the Gap with the sheriff himself about needing additional courthouse security. The judges really feel like they need that now, even with the YOs, but definitely going into this as we escort them to court, if they don't have an adult co-defendant, then once everything kind of gets rolling, they're looking at their court process even for the murder to stay at juvenile, unless they have an adult co-defendant. So the initial estimate would be $71,000 plus there's a vehicle cost, and I think, Brenda, you pay 65, 75%? What do you pay on school resource?
It's about 80 this year.
80%? I don't know.
I'm sorry, you mean what do we pay or what does the school pay?
I mean, what the school
The
pays.
school's about 80%, a little higher
Okay.
in some cases. 84, 86, just depends on which person's there, how long they've been there.
Okay.
But on average, it's 82, 84, something like that, probably.
With some of the YOs that we have, and this really isn't meant to be funny, but we have a lot of drive-by shoot people, and so they're YOs. The murder ones are not YOs. Murder one is the crime that does not qualify for YO. It's a capital offense. So the only difference in some of our drive-by shooters is they missed, honestly. So there's not a lot of difference in terms of their behavior and their history and their propensity for violence. So having someone who can help us with high-security transports, if somebody needs to go to the hospital on an emergency, we call the ambulance, obviously. And we have officers, our officers follow the ambulance and then provide security at the hospital. We don't feel like we need to be doing that alone without a certified law enforcement officer for these really high-risk offenders. We don't carry mace, we're not trained in firearms, nothing. So that's why we began those conversations, and I would just recommend that that be considered going forward for the sheriff's office. It would be, I would recommend they just have it in their budget and assign a deputy to the Juvenile Justice Center. That person would also may occasionally have some on-call time because not all emergencies always happen between 8 and 5. But the sheriff said that we could also contact patrol in those few instances that does come up. So I had indicated to you, Cody, that we would put something together for us to start the conversation prior to September, and that's what this is.
And this takes effect, you expect the YOs on November 1st?
We have YOs now.
Okay.
We will get the murder ones on November 1st. Right now, there are 13 males and 1 female for murder 1 in Pawnee, and they have 1 bed left. So another conversation we're having is if somebody else gets arrested and picked up for murder, and it's more than 1 male, or it is a female, we gotta do something, because they haven't located any more beds. So Judge Stinson is gonna visit with Judge Elliott today about that, making sure that he is okay with at least them temporarily being put in our holding cell until something can happen the next day or 2, because they gotta be put somewhere and they can't go to the county jail. But they will all come to us starting November 1st.
Structurally, do you have like a wing or a floor that you potentially see when we get those coming back over from Pawnee? Do you have room? Is what I.
Yeah, we have room,
Okay.
but what's gonna happen is we're gonna wind up having all 7 of our units open all the time. And the reason for that is we're gonna keep murders separated. And we have a unit that has 15 beds, that's our largest unit. So if we have 15 male murderers, you could put them in there. But more than likely, they've got a fall partner that was picked up with them at the same time, or there's a gang, it's a gang issue. So it's gonna be pretty common that we're gonna have 1 or 2 of those 15, for example, that can't be housed in there. So they're gonna have to go to another unit. Well, our smallest unit is 9. So in that scenario, we would have 7 vacant beds there. It doesn't matter if we got 9 kids or 2, we gotta staff it. So yes, we will have room, but we anticipate in order to be able to do some of the security things that would be necessary with these high-risk offenders, as well as quarantine issues that we anticipate may still very likely be going on in November, we need some more staff. And it takes probably 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. If you told us today, which you can't because there's a process, but if you said, maybe you better go ahead and get started on those August. Well, by the time we get them and hire them and do the backgrounds and go to training, I don't even know if I can get anybody on board by the end of August, but I'd like to try. So one thing we've done is, as Hannah said, we have 14 vacancies, and we're bringing 16 on Monday. We know we're gonna lose some. So I wanted to start trying at least, while our current budget can manage it, hiring that just a little bit at a time to see if we can be in a little bit better shape and, not be so low on staffing in addition to needing extra staff.
How much, when did this go into effect? I mean, I know it goes into effect November 1st, but when was this decided? Do you remember?
Well, the Juvenile Justice Reform Act, President Trump signed amendments in
Yeah, it was
18 or 19.
2018, but all that is a mandate to states that if you want to receive federal funding, you're going to have to do certain things. So they can't force the states into it. The Oklahoma legislature passed
And
a law
identical.
that mirrors those requirements, and that was, I believe, in
May
this last
2020.
legislative session, yeah, May
Yeah.
2020. So it goes, or May 20,
May 2020 it passed
And
to go in
it's in
effect
effect.
November 21.
Yeah, I was just curious, there's no way
Yeah.
we could have even contemplated any of this in the budget cycle.
Right.
Just because it was done so late.
yeah, and
It was enacted 5/7/2020 to be in effect on November 1, so.
of 2021, yeah. So we did, I mean, we knew about it coming in, but, and I appreciate the breakdown and the explanation of, you know, the day cycles and the, you know, taking out accruals, holidays. I mean, you guys know how to handle your shifts and how many people need to be there. I mean, I don't mean to jump into that. But my one question is, I know in the past, and I assume that you've used this same type of matrix, we've been told that you've been funded, not necessarily have, because you have vacancies, but you're funded to house 65 kids. And we're only at 35 kids, and OJA is only contemplating a contract of 50 beds. So I do understand that you'll need
Let me
a few
explain that.
more, hang on, I understand you'll need a few more because you're gonna have to have some of these folks in different housing, so you have to open other pods. But if you're funded at 65 and you only have 35, then it seems to me like some of the existing DO slots can be moved over to help offset some of this 15.
Okay, prior to us starting to get the YOs, not the murder, but the YOs, which was in June of 19, other than the male-female separation issue, everybody could be housed together. So we looked at staffing, we used the relief formula and stuff, but we didn't have to say there's COVID, so we're gonna have a unit with 7 vacant beds in order to do quarantine. We didn't have to say, because the original administrative order said we could not house YOs with county JDL. They had to be separate. So if you had one YO female, she was on her own in a unit with 8 vacant beds. That's what's changed. Now we have to look at how many units do we have to have open in order to manage all these scenarios, not how many kids.
No, and I get that, but how many YOs do you have over there right now?
I don't know,
Roughly.
15?
Probably 12 to 15.
Okay, and we're talking another 12 or 13 that are gonna be coming over. But if you have certain pods that you're gonna put the YOs and the murder ones in together over here. You've got your other pods that have everybody else. The everybody else, you're funded for almost twice as many as you need on that side. Because in the past, we've been told that you had funding for employees to monitor 65 individuals. If you have 35 instead of 65, and I'm not talking about the YOs or the murder ones or anything right now. So you have about double the staff funding that you need for this other group. This other group is gonna stay over here, but if you're funded at almost double, then it seems like some of them could then move over here to help offset some of that 15. I understand that you're gonna need more, but I don't see how you're still gonna need the same number over here for the same group that we talked about before. Why you're gonna need those when not only are our numbers down at 35, our contract is even gonna be down to 50 total.
I don't know
So-
how else to say it, Cody. It's gonna be based on how many posts we have to have open, based on all the different separation requirements that we did not
This
have.
might be something,
Yeah.
so back to like, I mean, like the days that I used to be in the jail. So, for example, and I'm just asking, so when you have, so when he's saying not the YOs and not the murderers, you know, do you have the same number of units open, whether you have 35 or 65, or do you have to open additional units? Because like, for example, in the jail facility when we were there, we could have 70 people in there, or we could have 140 people in there, it just depends on the day. So,
That's 64 is to house 5 units open. 64 officers keeps 5 units open. If we add an additional 15 kids, and one of them's gonna be female, if we're gonna separate the murderers out, I've gotta open the other 2 units.
Separate the murderers out from who?
From the YOs
You gotta
and
Well,
the
but Jamie
JDLs.
just said a minute ago that the YOs, a lot of them just missed. That was your term.
Right.
So you need to treat them the same. So why would you
Well,
separate the
some of them we
YOs from the
might,
murder
or we
ones?
might not. We have a lot of, we have belief out there primarily on the prosecution side right now that murderers should not be housed with anyone but murderers.
I was gonna ask you, is there a legal clarification between YOs and murderers? Regardless of whether their behavior is the same, is there a legal clarification that requires them to be separated?
No.
Not, doesn't require them to be separated. The law that's in effect now that says we can't house murder ones, won't be in effect anymore when the new law goes into effect and says, yes, you can.
So what do juvenile standards say? Like, I mean, I don't know, like ACA or what, do they recommend that they're separated? Is it something that, you see what I'm saying, just because it's not necessarily law, sometimes standards go above and beyond that if you're trying to maintain accreditation.
Yeah, I don't know an accreditation standard that speaks to that.
Not that speaks to that specific classification.
So back to that question, so if you have 65,
Yeah,
Kids.
64, so whether I have 64 kids or right now we have 35, we've still got 4 to 5 units open every day. And that's what I staff 64 officers to do.
But part of that is because you have to have other areas open because you have YOs. But some of the murder ones that come in are going to be able to fill up the same space in those pods that your YOs are in.
Some may.
Right.
And that is also gonna depend on, like she said, we're automatically, if there's a female right now. So that's gonna be a separate unit for a female, separate unit, especially with COVID quarantine. Like, we'll have to have all 7 units open with 15 additional kids.
Well, and so this also begs the question, and I know we're not under contract yet with OJA, but everything that I've seen and heard is that OJA is going to be amicable to entering into an agreement to pay for 50 beds, to have 50 beds. So if that 50 beds is for everybody, YOs, murder ones, and those that are in on, other, what are the status offenses?
We don't
and
ha- yeah, we
whatever else, hopefully.
We
those
don't
are-
do that.
Okay, good. But everything else, if it's all gonna be encompassing in the 50, then you said you got 13 right now, YOs, you're gonna have 14 coming from Pawnee, so that's 27. So you only have space for 23 more, based on that OJA contract. So your 35 that you currently have, I mean, some of those that are non-YOs and non-murder ones, I mean, there may not be room for them if we're only at 50.
I can speak.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So,
Well, if we're gonna say that you can only have 50 beds open, Jamie.
well, if that's,
right now, I
if
mean,
that's
it
what
didn't matter.
OJA, I mean, if that's
Well,
what.
but they have it contracted for 78 beds in 3 years.
Right.
So we could have county kids that have nothing to do with them and empty beds, and we're not gonna be able to turn them away. Just because those 50 beds are occupied and we have 26 more.
OJA is required by statute to reimburse counties at 80%, 85% of the cost of housing juveniles. So any that we have in there, the state is required to reimburse us for that expense. So if we have more than 50 in there, then we are going to either be in breach of contract or they're gonna be violating statute. Because if we have 60 in there instead of 50, they're required by statute to pay us for those other 10, but the contract is only for 50. So we're either gonna be in breach of contract or in violation of statute. So that's where I think it's gonna get sticky on your 50. It may be that if the contract with OJA is for 50, that 50 is the limit.
Or maybe we don't have a contract and we just do a settlement agreement at the end of the year.
You think OJA is gonna be amicable to that?
We've done it the last 2 years.
No, we've done it 1 year.
One full year.
Correct.
The year before that, we settled in February or April, so we went almost the entire year.
Yeah.
I don't know what they'll agree to.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's whatever we can all come to an agreement on, but I think the druthers of everybody involved is to have a contract. And if that contract, and then it doesn't even matter though if it's not a contract, because if OJA, I mean, what's the situation gonna be if we have 60 and OJA only funds their organization to be able to reimburse Oklahoma County for 50 kids, and then we operate without a contract, and then we send them a bill at the end of the year for reimbursement of 60 or 65, they don't have money, I mean, they're not gonna pay us back. And, I mean, I just think that it's something that we really, really need to dig into and figure out what the situation's gonna be.
And kind of back to this, I mean, I can tell you, at least from my experience, you know, what little experience it is. I mean, everybody in jail and juvenile, and generally speaking, they don't commit murder alone. They're usually almost always with somebody, and even, you know, Bruce can attest to this. I mean, literally, there's times in the jail where you can have 15 inmates and need 15 different pods for those 15 inmates, because one's on PC, one's on a gang, one's on this, one's on that. You know, or sometimes you can have 15 and they can all be in the same pod. You know, and so it's so hit and miss at, I mean,
But
at
the
best.
problem here is they're a lot more limited on the number of pods than
Absolutely.
what you guys were limited on.
Absolutely, and especially if you've got, you know, 5 of them that are dedicated to just normal crimes, I guess you'd call it.
So just in my mind, and I could be missing the boat here, but I think, I mean, it just seems to me like some of this 15 can be absorbed by having more staff. Not that you have more staff, because I know you're short-staffed right now, but you're funded for more staff than you need for 35 kids. I think we need to figure out how much of those can be absorbed into 15, and then figure out on there. Right now, we're paying the jail trust to house the juveniles. If we're not gonna be paying the jail trust to house the juveniles, and we're gonna be paying the juvenile center to house the juveniles, then we need to look at potentially moving money from the funding over here at the jail trust over to juvenile.
And how,
Can I clarify one thing? I know it sounds like 15, like we have 64 now, adding another 15 sounds like a big addition. 15 is only 3 additional posts.
No,
That's it.
I
know,
and I
I just wanted
agree.
to make that clear.
I
We're
know,
only talking 3 posts.
and that's why I said, whenever I read through your breakdown, it makes total sense. I'm not saying, you know, I know how many posts you should have and how many bodies you need to be assigning to those posts. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying, you're telling us that you need 15 more or 15 bodies for this group of individuals that's now gonna be
15
there.
bodies, 24 hours, 7 days.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly,
You
yeah,
need the
so
whole
you need
thing.
15 to do this whole thing.
Right.
What I'm saying is you use the same analysis for these others as far as the breakdown.
It is the same analysis.
Right,
Same
right.
analysis, same numbers. Right now, we have 5 pods open, we need 7.
Right.
I need 15 people to do that.
Right, and so what I'm saying is over here, instead of having 65, you only have 35 for those. So some of that should be able to be shifted over to this 15.
let me ask you this, let's say.
There's no one to shift.
So let me ask you this, let's pretend for a second that the YOs and the murder ones never came to the Juvenile Justice Center. Would you be able to, with the amount of people that you were funded for, would you have been able to run all 7 pods at that time, like when you came in for the budget?
65 kids. That's how it was calculated before, yes.
So if you were to have 65 kids, none of them YOs and none of them murder ones,
Correct.
how many units would you have open?
We could have anywhere between 5 and 7, but I could do the full, because we could put them anywhere.
You
I can do
see
that
where
with
I'm
the
going, though?
yeah.
I just wanna make sure that,
Yeah.
We'd have
I wanna
to-
make sure that when you came in, like like budget reasons,
Yeah.
like initially, when you got, like, to Cody's point, when you got funded for that original amount, if you got funded for enough to run 65 kids, I don't care about the number of kids. The number of kids are
Yeah,
relevant to
we
me.
don't, probably only
Just-
have 4 day rooms open, because we could put them
No.
all together.
Except for the
No, no.
female.
Yeah, except for the
Yes.
female.
So that's why we said 5.
Right.
What I wanna know, Brandon, is how much does it cost for you to transport them currently from Pawnee to here?
I mean, a lot. I mean, I don't know the
What's a
exact number.
lot? 200,000 a year?
We're keeping numbers. It's still probably too early to do that, but
I mean, even if it's $200,000 a year, we're currently paying $215,000 to house 15 of them for 365 days a year. Those two together is 400,000. That's not even half of the ask. I don't understand why we would just keep them in Pawnee. If that's where they wanted to put them, they didn't want them there 2 weeks ago, let's keep them in Pawnee and just fund 200,000 for transport and keep funding a contract. And then we don't have to move money from the trust funds the contract. All hunky dory. And the trust is paying you for transport now?
Although
Yeah,
we
it's
may
not
need
for
to,
those.
we may need to look at that.
Yeah.
Increase some money over to the jail trust potentially for that transport. But-
Possible. It's possible, but that's, even if I doubled those figures and went from 400 to 800, I'm still less. And I don't have the liability of when I'm dying in our facilities, or one of our guards doing something, anything of that sort. It's all plenty. Now, we do have the liability for transport.
yeah, and just for the record, the trust transportation with the sheriff's office is only for court.
Right.
It's not for the new ones, so I mean, I've already gotten 3 texts since this thing started, hey, Oklahoma City arrested one. It's, we're taking a patrol guy off the street to run into Pawnee and back.
Yep.
We've had to bring a couple of them back for signatures, which is not contemplated in the MOU as well. So those are transports outside of the court.
The normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably something that we need to update the MOU between the sheriff, well, between the county, Board of County Commissioners on behalf of the sheriff's office and the trust.
Well, I think they're unrelated transports though.
Yeah.
Well, no, you would just, it would be a transportation MOU and you'd have the to and from court and then you would have the to and from Pawnee.
I think the thing, Miles, that would need to be addressed, because I thought of that also, is that House Bill 2311 says that no person under the age of 18 will be in an adult facility. So Pawnee's an adult facility, unless they change the name and they're separate enough for that wing to be the Pawnee Juvenile Detention Center. Technically, I don't think we can keep them there and contract with Pawnee. That's something that would need to be looked at by people that have been to law school, and that's not me.
I'm
Well,
sure
if we
we
could
know.
get away from going to Pawnee County, we would certainly appreciate that.
Just bought you
Well,
47 vehicles. It's
yeah.
not like you're wearing one out. I mean, it actually allows us to hold them in an adult facility and hold a trial every 30 days and to reaffirm that they can be held in an
Yeah,
adult
murder one
facility.
only.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so.
So I'm hearing
Any
OJ is
adult
only
jail
gonna
locked up for 180 days.
contract for 50 beds for this coming fiscal year, so we're.
And that's all they were willing to contract for last year as well, was 50. Now, our reimbursement that we're seeking, we didn't have over the 50, so it wasn't an issue. But if we're gonna add, we've added YOs in the last year, if we add murder ones and something doesn't change with the other groupings in there, then we're potentially gonna be over the 50.
But we still bill them even if it's above 50.
To me, the statute is clear, and it doesn't delineate if it's, if you, unless you contract otherwise or anything like that. It's a mandate.
The settlement agreements that you've had in the past haven't included that additional? Or-
They've not been over. over the 50.
And what's the contract boarding rate alone? That's probably $250,000 cost to the county, right,
$42 a day,
per
No.
person?
$214,620, if it's at 15. If we max.
Is that for an entire fiscal year?
Yeah,
The 240?
365 days, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think the one officer awful having to bring him, hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes one way and back. Where I think it's gonna get really silly is when they go into jury trial for 3 straight weeks and we literally have somebody going every single day
Yeah.
to pick up multiple people in different cars because you can't put codependents in the same car and so on and so
Yeah.
forth.
Yeah.
I think that's where it'll start getting silly. I think our numbers could start getting pretty big at that point when you dedicate full shifts essentially to go and then to come back and sit on them or, they're tied up at that point. Yeah, I don't.
Well, there's no decisions that need to be made today. I mean, we don't make decisions anyway, we make recommendations, but there's nothing on here that would allow us to make a recommendation. This is more of a starting the discussion. So,
I am gonna need some recommendation and board decisions at some point pretty quick. Because I have to purchase the machine, get the training, I have to hire people, so, I'm gonna run out of time if we don't
I'd like to
address some
know-
of these issues in the next 30 days.
I'd like to know why they still can't be booked at the jail.
I'm sorry,
Why
what?
can't they be booked at the jail? It was very
That was
clear.
decided in that meeting.
It was very clear that it was not a detention center. That the jail, the booking itself, Judge Elliott and Prater both agreed that that is not part of the jail. That is booking, and they can be booked in, and then they can be transported elsewhere. I don't know why we don't continue using that and then transport them over.
Okay.
Then we're not spending money.
The only downside I might see is
I don't understand why you can't just put them upstairs at that
we'd
point.
have to give you, because I'm assuming y'all don't use the same booking software that the jail uses, right?
Right.
So we'd have to find a way to
Merge
merge
that,
those.
Yeah. It's a mess.
So Jamie, are everything on this sheet is related to having the kids in Pawnee coming over,
Mhm.
correct?
And I'm by no means an attorney either, but the way I read, it doesn't appear to me either that Pawnee County is gonna be able to keep them going forward. There might be some provision,
Yeah, I don't,
but it was kind of, again, not without a legal opinion, it looked like they were out of that business November 1st is the way I kind of understood it.
I can't tell, because it's got spots in here talking about putting them in adult facilities that sometimes it requires 30, every 30 days you have a trial, and then sometimes it's 180. And then it says it has to be sight and sound separated in an adult facility, which,
yeah, but I think,
it's,
I could be wrong, but I don't think when they're contemplating a hearing, that it's gonna be
Hour and a half.
that it's gonna be, we don't really have accommodation, so we wanna send them over there. I think it's more, they need more adequate security because X, Y, and Z, so this particular individual needs to be over there, and it's gonna have to be a court minute, it's gonna have to, so.
The court has 7 factors that the judge has to consider, and after evaluating it, determine that it meets those 7 factors.
And then do a
And it's only for
continuing
murder one.
ongoing analysis.
Has to be reviewed every 30 days, and I don't see the murder one situation clogging up their dockets and then wanting to do that every 30 days unless it's a situation that really is,
Miles, was it a max?
sirloin stockade or something. It's gonna have to be something really
it's.
notable.
Hopefully this isn't a silly question, but is there, when the murder ones, when they come back, I guess depending on no matter what, on November 1st, are they required and afforded all the exact same things that the current kids are afforded, like the recreation time, the shower time, all those other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to have all that, the juvenile, that's
Which is,
mental health, et cetera.
Regardless of
Suicide,
classification.
Yeah.
which is why I was saying there's potentially, if we do have to move them over here, significant funding that the trust isn't gonna need, because they're not gonna have that responsibility anymore, because it is a lot more onerous as far as getting them to rec, to showers, to school, to all of that, so.
Well, I think
there
what,
may be
I think my
savings
point was is, I mean, probably going on a limb, but I would venture that the trust was not doing it to the level, because I mean, I think there were probably, because juveniles in an adult facility are different than juveniles in a juvenile facility.
Well, were you guys doing it when you were running the jail?
I mean, as best as we can, but I mean, it's.
Because they were funded at the same level you were funded at to do it,
that's
so.
more of a Henley
So if you
question.
guys were able to meet the needs of the kids, then they have the funding. I'm not saying that they are or they're not, I don't know, I'm not over there, but I know that if you guys have the funding, then they should have the funding because they got the same funding that you guys have.
Well, what I mean more so is that, you know, like, for example, did juveniles always have an officer in there? Did, you know, things like that would be required at the juvenile facility that may or may not have been, you know, required in our
Yeah,
facility?
exactly. I mean, you gotta think, when we escort them to the classroom, in some cases, we're gonna want 2 officers sitting in those classrooms with the murder ones or with just other classifications, just based on all the what ifs, you know? I would just hate for something bad to happen, because just from my experience, working over there at the county jail, most of our more violent assaults took place involving the juveniles. So in some cases, they can have unpredictable behavior, a lot of trauma, so on and so forth, so.
Yeah, none of us are contemplating, you know, having them over in your facility and it not being safe and accommodating. My point was just that if you guys had those situations over there, you had to have detention officers available and, you know, and all of that when they were in the jail, when the sheriff's office was running it. If the trust got the same funding that the sheriff did, then that portion of the funding for the juveniles could be
I think
potentially
that they
shifted
were,
over.
they got funded to do what they needed to do, but they couldn't keep enough staff. So they weren't able to do things like they're supposed to. They weren't able to always have education. They weren't able to always have rec. They weren't able to always shower. And that's where everybody started getting crazy about it.
Right, but if it's just a matter, kind of like you guys run into situations where you're
We'll
short-staffed.
have the same
it doesn't
situation
mean
if
that-
we don't get staff.
Right, but it doesn't mean that you don't have the money to have the staff, it just means that you don't have the staff present. So what I hear you saying is the same thing, they have the money over here, but they may not have had the bodies to do it. So then we just transfer the money over to you, and hopefully you can have the bodies to be able to do it.
Yeah.
A big difference is rec time, from the Oakland County Jail to us, they were lucky to get out maybe 2 to 3 hours a day on a good day, where we're required by OJA to get them out for 12 hours.
Yeah. Out of their cells for
It's
12
those
hours.
sorts of things I'm talking
Yeah.
about. I mean, I'll just ask you pointedly, if these 15 people, I mean, if they are not approved and all the murder ones come to your facility, are you gonna be able to run your facility the way that it needs to be ran?
No.
Okay.
Currently, we
So-
have vestibules or pot offices that are unmanned. And so we'd love to have an officer in those vestibules or the pot offices for more or less backup, if assistance need to be called for our staff to really have eyes on the units at all times. That's where those 3 posts would come into play and
And
to really provide us a different level of safety and security for the facility.
Has that glass all been replaced? Because I know some of those vestibules where the
Yeah.
glass was really damaged.
And we've done some
So say you
tinting,
Put them in an adult facility.
one-way view
Adults are
stuff.
second zones separated. It's nuts. I don't know what's going.
Jim, is the iTouch system for the whole detention center?
I'm sorry.
Your iTouch, is that the whole, the whole detention center?
It's the fingerprint.
Right, but it's for,
It's
or are
for,
you just, it's not in two different units that you're
No,
going
it-
to open?
right, it's just will be for people being admitted to our detention facility.
So it's anybody?
Yes,
It does
yes,
say-
right now,
it does say that they have to be
we send them
licensed.
to CIC,
Okay.
and they have been agreeable to do our fingerprints. I just learned from the OSBI this week that we should have been fingerprinting the out-of-custody kids. So when a police officer picks somebody up, then a decision has to be made whether they're in custody and they get admitted to detention, or they're released to a family member and they have to come back to court. Well, we haven't been fingerprinting those people. So we've got to start doing that, and if we don't do it when they bring them to the facility that night, print them before we release them to mama, then I guess we would have to call a judge and say, will you order little Tommy to go over to CIC and get his prints, because we're obligated, to provide them to the OSBI. So that's another thing that we're trying to figure out how we're gonna
So
manage.
this is something you would like to do regardless of this House Bill 2311?
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that now that I've learned about the out of custody situation, we probably are gonna need this anyway.
Yeah.
And to add on to that, any new additional charges that are added on, we're supposed to be also reprinting those individuals that are also in our facility if additional charges or felonies are added. We have to reprint them.
You,
Yeah, it's just what OSBI has requested or required for, I know the county jail does it. So any new felony charge that's added, we have to pull them out of their room, take them and have them reprinted.
Is that a request or a requirement?
It's, I'm pretty sure it's not a CODIS, but they'll cut their fingers and burn them and things like that. She's wanting new prints.
yes, Gretchen?
I think we've moved on beyond the agenda item.
Well, no, part of the agenda item is the iTouch system, which is what we're talking about, the fingerprinting system.
It's on the
Six?
attached, it's on the attached
Yeah.
document.
It's on the
Yeah.
attached document.
With all
But
the
it's not
back,
on the agenda.
with all the backup?
It's on the attached document, it's on the agenda.
No, it has to stay on the agenda item, what you're gonna be talking about.
Well, but
We are.
we are, though. This is part of the expense related to the implementation of House Bill
The
2311.
attachments don't matter. It's the agenda item.
Right, and we're talking about the agenda item, which is an update regard,
House Bill 2311?
and the identified staff and resources necessary upon implementation. This is part of the resources necessary.
Okay.
Okay. So,
Okay, does anybody have any other questions or anything? Think we can, we're at a good starting point on this. So,
The agenda item definitely doesn't give us any ability to make a recommendation the way it's written.
yeah. My suggestion would be, though, as part of the resources, I'm in complete agreement that any of the transportation costs or the extra security should be in the sheriff's budget. So I would have conversations with the sheriff's office so they can figure out exactly what they're going to need in their budget to be able to accommodate the additional.
so they can make the
tasks.
request?
Mhm.
Okay.
I mean, assuming that you're
Yeah.
able to provide that function, so. All right, is there a motion to receive the report?
Motion received.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Jamie, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Emily, Anna, thank you. All right, item number 7, discussion possible action regarding a transfer in the amount of $103,479.40 from General Fund Reserve 995 to Information Technology $67,600 will go into salaries, and $35,879.40 will go into benefits. This is to hire a full-time web designer. Dave?
Good afternoon. Yes, we're asking for this money so that we can hire a full-time web designer with the continuing projects we have with regards to our website, the assessor's website. We've had some requests and some talks about some other potential web products or web projects that are coming up. We really need a second full-time designer.
And we've had a part-time helping with the
Correct.
transition to the new website.
Correct.
And I think there's still work that needs to be done on that.
There is, updates happen daily. I mean, people need things changed.
And if
constantly.
memory serves correct, you guys asked for less salary this year than the previous year. So when we gave you your budget,
Correct.
we actually reduced salary from the previous fiscal year.
Not holistically, Cody, but in this sense, yes,
Yeah.
because what we had done, our plan going in was, we had 2 part-time positions that we didn't feel we needed anymore. We were using that money to pay the part-time
Right.
person. Since we didn't ask for that, that was taken away, we didn't need it, but when we didn't get the full-time position funded, now it put us into a situation where now we're paying a part-time person now from funds that we really didn't have, which we could do for a couple of months and make it work, but really come at the end of this month, we're not gonna have the funds for that. So we're gonna get back down to one full-time designer who's also shares management responsibility for running the entire applications department. And we're gonna be back to really in a tough spot.
When would this
Yeah.
person go into effect? Just as, what would be your goal?
We could, pending funding approval, we could probably we would turn that part-time position likely into a full-time position immediately.
So Dane came and talked about this with me a few weeks ago. And he said that he had enough money to continue the part-time position, and they felt like it was necessary for them to continue that because that person is working on, I think, the assessor, I think the portion of your website is still under development, and if he didn't keep them on, I mean,
Right.
not only would they not be able to be doing that, then we would have to extend our contract with
Civic Plus.
Civic Plus even longer,
We're
so.
contracted through September on that, so that our
Yeah.
deadline on that, if we really wanted to be careful, we
So they were really in a
Middle of
situation
September.
to where they couldn't wait to ask until the September supplement, but they had a little bit of time that they could wait until this BET meeting and maybe get something accomplished this month. So,
So you would take a current part-time position and upgrade them to a full-time?
correct.
Okay, so whatever they're being paid now, plus this would be the new annual salary for next?
they didn't actually, they didn't
No,
get
we
the
actually don't have
part-time
any
money.
technical
Okay.
funding for this. We're gonna pull this out of, if funding weren't happening, and we just didn't get it, this position probably goes away at the end of August, and we would just find that, let's say, 8 to 10,000, over the course of the 2 months that we need it somewhere later down the road, whether it be a capital transfer or some leftover M&O or travel or whatever.
With it being such a small amount that he'd have to transfer from M&O or capital if he didn't get the money because of the results that it would have caused with the assessor working on their website. He felt like it was beneficial to go ahead and roll the dice on $8,000 or $10,000, but not roll the dice to
A year's worth.
a year's worth of
Part-time.
new money. So it would all be new. That's what I was getting at. The year before, he had 2 part-time positions that were funded. He didn't ask for them this year. So when everybody else had a standstill, basically a standstill budget, his, if you look at the salary, is actually reduced from the year before because he didn't ask for
line
them.
item.
Not in terms of absolute dollars, because obviously
Yeah, on the
3%
line
and
item.
merit based on
Yeah,
stuff is
but
there.
the 3% and the merit base is
Right,
separate.
but if you look at
Yeah.
it from that point of view, sure. And we're talking about a loss of about, I want to say it's around 75K between those 2 part-time positions. So we really weren't, in
So if
March,
he
we really
would've-
weren't asking for a lot to make this position.
If they would have
whole.
submitted their estimate of needs, including those 2 part-time positions, and we funded them just like we did everybody else at the same level, their salary account would have been higher by $75,000 roughly than it is right now. And so then, if he was wanting to go from the part-time to the full-time, he would need to ask for the difference between 75 and the 103. He didn't ask for the 2 part-time positions. He just asked for the new position on his estimate of needs. We decided we were gonna wait to address that until the September supplement, so he didn't have any of that money available to do anything. That's why they're kinda in the position they're in.
Correct.
So,
Assessor is throwing your name around a lot. Is this something you'd find useful?
well, yeah, I mean, it's not just the
It's not just the
assessor's
Okay, yeah.
website, but Marcy's sitting right here.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
But no, the assessor's website is important to their business, and I know that that's, I think, the main
Right.
area
Yeah, I'd
that's
like to also
still
point out that that
needed to be
contract
finished.
position plus also wasn't funded either, so we're pulling that from places as well.
Yeah.
For the new FY, right.
And we didn't fund it because the web designer was gonna take the place of Civic.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, we weren't actually even, Chris, we really weren't even approaching it that way. We were, that was a legitimate way of approaching it, saying, well, we were paying $60,000 a year to Civic Plus for, a little bit more. We get an actual full-time designer who can do more than just, the website. They can do other web projects that come around. But we were actually framing it as, we don't need these 2 part-time positions that we were funded $75K for roughly. If for just a little bit more, we get this full-time position.
How much is in reserve? A little over $1 million?
One,
Million
Danny
one-
just checked
yeah.
it for me.
1,158,000.
So we still have over $1 million in reserve after that. Questions, comments, motions?
That reserve off early. You asked for comments. That was a comment.
Yeah, this was just one of those that kind of fell right, I mean, kind of fell through the cracks, but something that they recognized early on that they've got to make a decision on. So that they don't want to extend that part-time any longer than this month if they're not gonna have the funding for that, and I understand that. And they've got to be able to make plans on how they're gonna finish out the website and,
Future
and
projects.
everything.
Yeah, we feel are coming.
So if the position weren't funded, I mean, it put a strain on MIS.
Yeah,
Probably couldn't.
if you don't fund it, I would say we'll lose that position probably 8/31. That's how we approached it. So now you're down to one person who, while incredibly talented, is still
Yeah.
one person.
Right.
So with a website still left to finish, and that's the assessor's site, so that we don't have to recontract with Civic Plus another quarter or 6 months or however long it takes him to finish it. You're looking at other potential projects that we've been asked that could come around from various offices, that likely to get that done in any kind of reasonable time frame. You're talking about going outside and probably contracting, in which case you're spending the money again anyway.
Probably more so.
And probably more so because contractors are always more expensive. How we really landed on the part-time position is we were contracting to do this, but we felt it was just more cost-effective to just make it a part-time position.
Is the 103 then for 10 months, assuming you've got someone on board for
That'd be full
September
fiscal year.
1st?
I believe that's full fiscal year.
That's kind of where I was going earlier,
Right.
except for the full amount.
If you fund it for 10 months, Christie, it comes down to, well, we just go find the money that we were paying the part-time, and which is fine. I mean, we could do that. Funding it for full year doesn't mean we have to find that extra 8K-ish or around there.
Danny, I'm with you. It makes me nervous. But I'm also with the fact that it scares the crap out of me that we're knee deep in something that we really can't back out of, so. We're gonna spend the money one way or the other, we're either gonna spend it on a contractor, and a contract, or we're gonna keep it in-house. And we're gonna have somebody at our fingertips. Correct? Is that the way I'm understanding this?
I'd say that's pretty accurate.
Okay. So
Or
spend
they're
it
gonna wait a
now.
really long time for, potentially a long time for any web project or future applications that maybe today we don't even know about. But could come up, not to mention website updates. In fact, our department, when I started here in 2010, our department had 2 web designers. We had that for approximately 5 years. We lost both of those due to various reasons. Replaced with one. When we went to Civic Plus, I think it was probably felt by the administration at the time that we could probably get by with one developer, since the idea behind going to Civic Plus and an offsite was that that system allowed for departments and offices to do their own updating, should they choose to do it. Some did, some didn't, that's fine. But us bringing it back in-house, not that that's not possible, but it becomes less likely. So now we're back to managing those 100% in-house. Not to mention, also our intranet site, InfoZone. It's an entirely different website to manage. So you've got one person right now managing 2 sites plus future projects while trying to build 3 sites. Actually, 4 sites. There's the assessor's organization page. So can we survive? Sure. Just means our support level suffers.
I don't know, crystal ball, but is there anything that you foresee hitting the reserve that would prevent this from possibly happening?
Better yet, how does September look? We're talking 31 days or less.
Well, with employee
21 days.
benefits, I mean,
You never know.
you never know. At minimum, you should have $1 million in reserve.
Yeah.
Just because of that.
But we'll have, how much more from resale?
Is it 1.4?
I think it was close to 1.5, but yeah.
It's coming in on top of the one.
Mm-hmm.
When does that come in? September?
September
It's already in
supplement.
the bank, we just
Yeah.
have to pick it up to appropriate it and budget it.
Yeah, so we're really looking at 2.5
2.6.
plus maybe more if there's rollover and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So,
But if this were to wait till September, you'd end up having to let somebody go at 8/31?
The risk is this. Okay, if it were to wait till September, but we felt like it was coming, we had some assurance, let's say it this way, we had assurance that was coming in September, I could probably stretch it out another month, we would find that money, or we would be fine. Because it's not a money factor today, it becomes a money factor in April and May by keeping this part-time person. It's not money that we're technically budgeted for. It's not an issue today, it's an issue later. But if that doesn't come, then we just stretched ourselves even further. We can't continue to run part-time.
That just means you're coming back to us in May for, hey, can I get money for this
Possibly.
new printer fix that just
Possibly.
hit?
Or maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe we just make, we generally have money left over in capital anyway, that's not uncommon.
Right.
So it's.
well, but it could also affect whether, because I think the Civic Plus, the current agreement is up in September. So
Correct.
even if you fund that through the end of September,
I-
if we don't get it, then, we'll need to know in September whether we need to re-up
Right.
the Civic Plus
Because of the
agreement.
contract process, if we're not live with the new assessor side by 8/31, I'm already calling Civic Plus saying, hey, we need to renew for another quarter.
Yeah.
And that's more unfunded money.
And we don't know how much that is.
It's approximately 2,400-ish, 2,500-ish a quarter. It's one site. It's not
Yeah,
what
so
it
it's
was
not
last
a lot,
year,
but-
because it's not 4 sites, it's down to 1. So not an extreme amount, but still unbudgeted money for us. But to be fair, so was Civic Plus all last year, and we didn't work.
Yeah, it's $9,600, $2,400 a quarter.
No.
No, it's 'cause it was 4.
Because you had 4, multiply that times 4.
Okay.
or actually bigger than that,
Okay.
because there's some aspects that
Yeah,
we
it's
have in
like
regular
60
contractors, yeah, so.
I would feel much more comfortable after we know the September supplement number. You've got the part-time position on staff, right, that can do that until
We
September.
do, I can't swear that that person will decide to stick it out.
Correct.
But if we're talking about it from a positional point of view, yes. But the actual individual itself, if you want to go into there, Danny, I don't know that the person is willing to wait
That
till
makes
through the end of
sense.
September.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which was part of the reason why I recommended them go ahead and come now
Right.
and talk to us.
I think we're fortunate that we've still got that person right now.
Well, the September supplement's just an unknown. I know we talked about the resale 1.4, but remember, this budget was built on all estimates on revenue collections and how much the departments would lapse, turn back, so. It's just an estimate.
Any other discussion? Is there a motion?
Let me ask one more question to make sure I understand. So the part-time person now, we didn't fund that either.
Correct. That's, we lost, when we didn't get those two part-time positions, because we didn't ask for them, so we didn't expect to get that. But that 75K, we were using money from that all through, well, I would say, let's say the last 6 months of last year to pay for that position easily. We could easily pay for that position. But that money's not there this year.
So instead
So not
of,
only just stripping a new position, like we did for everyone, because I'd like to evaluate all the new positions.
Yeah.
Although I see the need.
right,
Right.
the
Or at least
difference
some
to
funding for
me,
this part-time that
yeah, the
didn't
difference
get
to
funded.
me
I mean,
was
we had someone on
that,
staff we didn't fund.
and where this kind of fell through the cracks that I mentioned earlier, was that they were paying for it with this part-time. When they submitted their estimate of needs, they said, what we'd rather do is instead of having these two part-time positions, we need this to still happen, but let's do it with one full-time position. And so they asked for that, and then when we said, we're gonna come back, what should have happened, I should have caught it, or whatever, said, well, do you need those part-time, do we need to fund those part-time positions at 75,000 to keep your salary level where it was the previous year? And if we would have done that, then we really wouldn't be here, because we're talking a difference of 20 or 30,000, and then, you know, they could, you know, make those decisions and then, you know, figure something out towards the end of the fiscal year.
We could have bought some
But-
time until.
Yeah.
Even if we lose the person, we would at least have the funds to do a contract with a hiring firm or something like that, which is how we landed the person initially.
So that's why it was a little different to me than just a
No, I see it.
new
We have someone
position.
on staff that we didn't
Yeah.
fund. And
Right.
we fund 100% of people that are on staff.
Right.
I may be on an island, but I mean, I'm personally in support of it just because I think the website is the face of the county. I think it's the first thing that people see when they get on it. I mean, I hear that we're hitting reserve fund early, but I feel like it's necessary. So again, I may be on an island, but I'll make a recommendation or make a motion to make a recommendation to the budget board to fund it. Transfer the money from general fund reserve to information technology in the amount of 103,479.40.
Well, and I appreciate Danny's point, I really do, but I just think that we're a little bit different here, and kind of like what Brandon said on getting the websites up and going, but also to give some idea of stability in the IT department of not just as the directors managing the people, but the person in that position, that whether they want to stay here or whether they need to go find somebody else, I think it's highly beneficial to move forward on this at this time. We have a motion. Do we have a second? We got a motion and a second. Marcy seconded. Brandon made the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm abstaining from it.
Okay. All right, motion passes. Kelly, will you make sure that that gets on budget board for us?
Sure will.
IT, also track it. Okay, item number 8, discussion possible action regarding, Jamie, I should just had you address this one when you were up here earlier, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Regarding a request of CARES Act funding for Hero Pay in an amount not to exceed $122,071.
$17.
721
$122,271, what did I say?
times 3.
IRS runs up, don't worry about it. Something close.
Sorry.
What's on the agenda?
It says 122,271.
Okay.
But the attachment is 721.
721,
It
yeah.
says 721 on the
Just
sheet,
transpose
yeah.
numbers.
What's it supposed to be?
Mm,
What's it supposed to be?
It's all 123.
That's
It
good.
was supposed to be 721.
Oh, I get you, the times 3.
Yeah.
I get you.
But that's okay.
Okay, so Jamie, just real quick, let me throw this out there. We don't know exactly where we are on our CARES dollars at the moment. We need to kind of figure out where that is. I think if we have the money, and I think that, Hero Pay, we did it last year, and I think it's something that is definitely worthwhile at looking at again. But I do have two qualifiers on that. I think if we're gonna do it, we need to look at it organization-wide and not just single out juvenile. We need to look at the sheriff's office as well. They're having folks in that same situation. You guys did Hero Pay last year. The other question that I have is, do we wanna just, I'm sorry?
Doesn't every office? I mean, the court clerk sits there and.
Well, okay, we can,
I'm just curious.
I'm throwing those two out there for sure. If you wanna, I agree, I mean, the court clerk's office is sitting there with people in front of them all the time. I mean, I'm not.
trying to leave anybody out.
I'm not trying to leave anybody out either, I'm just using another example.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is beyond just looking at one department, I think we need to look at organizationally, how we should approach this, and whether, last year, did you guys do $500 a month, or was it 1,000?
It was 1,000.
That's what I thought, so if we're gonna do this, if we have the money, and I don't know if we have the money, but why wouldn't we do it at the same level that we did last year? And if we're gonna do it, at the same level that we did last year, why not look at doing this to the beginning of the calendar year when the old money for the folks that were getting Hero Pay money ended? Those are just some suggestions, whenever I was looking at this. I think it's a good idea, I really do, but I think we need to address this as an organization, and I think we need to figure out what we can do. That's just some of my 2 cents.
Have we gotten any updates from Home Finance Authority and Industries Authority on all the money that was given to them? Do we know it's
I've
allowed?
not heard anything from Home Finance Authority yet. I think Kelly might have some information on OIA.
Home Finance Authority has spent all their money, I think, or
Okay.
has it obligated.
I thought they did.
Okay.
OIA is telling me that they're going to be returning between 2.5 and 2.7 million.
Okay.
So once we know how much, and it may be a little uncertain now with some of the things that are going on in the community with the Delta variant and all of that, as far as David Barnes and PPE, he may need to stock back up. I don't know what his situation is, but we really need to find out how much money we have in there, and then figure out what we want to do with this money, because we don't have enough time, in my opinion, to do big projects with that. The front entrance here, your lobby, out at Juvenile, I don't think we have time to utilize CARES dollars to get those projects completed by the end of December. So I think we need to start having conversations about how to appropriately utilize those dollars in accordance with the CARES Act guidelines. I think this is something that is definitely in the wheelhouse of the CARES Act, and I think we need to really look at it. And like I said, potentially look at going back to the beginning of the calendar year. I mean, those people have been, I mean, if they're under the gun right now needing Hero Pay, they were under the gun in January and February and March and April and May. you know, so, anyway.
We've really narrowed our criteria. It's a smaller group. We're not including probation and intake. We listed the positions, and it was for 90 days, our estimate, thinking that we would know whether Delta was going to present some significant issues or not by then. So I just bring that to your attention to say that that's what that figure represents. And our criteria is, because we have a lot of people that could say, yeah, well, I see people all day long. You know, where do you stop? So in our discussion, we said that it had to be people that worked in a capacity that required close contact and prolonged exposure, in our case, to the juvenile residents, coming in from the community, possibly as a carrier, and then we're wrestling them, we're testing them, we're right there. That's how we approached it this time.
Mm-hmm.
Just food for thought, if you look at that system-wide.
Okay.
And your plan is for 90 days, so basically 3 periods. So October, November, December, for example, would be an option
Yeah.
as well.
Actually, this was August, September, October,
Right,
but
right,
yes, it'd be the same.
Okay.
And I didn't add in the 15 positions.
Right.
But that's only gonna be like another 12,000 if we do it for 3 months. We can, I'm sure we'll absorb that with vacancies.
Okay, well,
Jimmy, what's YGS?
Youth guidance specialists or counselors.
Just didn't know.
Yeah,
Curious.
sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
do you have strong objection to us pausing just momentarily on this, not taking action today, and so we can have some discussion on the organization as a whole? Because what I would like to do is have something that's not kind of hodgepodge. I mean, if the sheriff's office is wanting to do hero pay, I think the dollar amount and the criteria should be the same for any of the individuals that work for the county that we're giving hero pay for, and not 500 for you guys, 1,000 for you, 750 for you, 1,200 somewhere else, that we have a plan and a program. Plus, when it comes to auditing on the back end, if we're audited on it, it'll make it much easier for us to show that we were in compliance if we have one program.
No, I don't have any problem with that. I wanted the discussion to start.
I appreciate that.
So, I don't need to re-raise this.
No,
All
ma'am.
We'll
No, ma'am.
discuss.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for raising it, though.
Okay.
So related to this, once you get some more clarifying numbers from OIA, and it, kind of back to the Criminal Justice Authority agenda item earlier, my opinion is, we gave that money to those organizations to do stuff with. It's up to them to tell us, we're done, here's the money. If the Criminal Justice Authority isn't ready to tell us, we're done, here's the money, I don't think we really have anything to do with it until that point. Same thing with OIA. But when we know that, and especially if we can know that early on, we can start making some of these plans.
Well, we can make it retroactive, even on December 31, right?
Yeah, I guess we could.
Look,
but
guys, we
it
got
would
10
be-
million left.
yeah.
Everybody gets hero pay. I'm not saying that's what we do, I'm just saying.
It's on
I'd
record.
rather not do that.
Yeah, okay. All right, is there a motion to receive the update on item number 8?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and we may, if people are having conversations and you want to call, if you guys want to have a special meeting before a month, I would welcome that, so let's just kind of wait and see. If we need to have one, we can, to have some more discussions on the
Do we
care
have any
stuff.
idea when the OIA is turning that money back?
Say again?
Do we have any idea when the OIA
I
is turning?
emailed her again last week and said, do you have any idea when you might get that to us? And I haven't heard a word.
So as soon
She's
as,
usually pretty quick about getting back to me.
as soon as we hear and we know how long it'll take for us to get it back, maybe I'll call a special meeting at that point,
Yeah.
because then we'll know what those dollars are.
Well, and then our 3.8 will be more solid at that point too, or
Yeah.
4.2 or
Yep, agreed.
whatever that number is.
All right, citizens' participation, anybody want to participate? Kelly, anybody sign up?
No?
All right, board comments, District 2,
No, thank you.
District 3.
Mm.
Clerk?
Nothing.
Treasurer?
No.
Court clerk?
No, thanks.
Assessor? Sheriff? None for me. Any new business? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Adjourn. Thanks, everyone. Miles, you have not seen a stray fat guy, blue coat floating around the building, have you? I left my blazer down in the big HR conference room.
I didn't know where that was going.
Well, no, because I know he's down in in that conference room occasionally. I didn't know if you saw it. HR said they haven't seen it. I left it on the back of the chair.
Which conference room?
Their new one, the
The
big.
new one, my old office?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Hell, the only time I've been in there lately